Forza Motorsport. It's a pretty hot topic now with the release of its 8th installment. With each title before this release having only 2 years of gap in between, it's no surprise this game got the attention with its 6-year release gap. But I'm afraid to disappoint you, but I'm not gonna cover the new Forza Motorsport. Instead, let's go back. I've covered every single title in this series up until Forza Motorsport 4, and so far it has been a pretty interesting journey, with each installment improving on its core features with questionable changes and the continual degradation of the game's character in exchange for a more bland professional look. So now that I'm finally done with the greatest of Forza Motorsport, it's time to face the other side of the coin. So you know what? Let's cover FM5 to 7 in a quick fire session. That way we get to see just how far the series has gone since 2012. Has the series actually improved, or has it truly gone downhill as many people have said? Motorsport 5 came out in the year 2013 alongside the new console, and this was a disastrous year for Microsoft. All that momentum from the 360 just gone completely in a single night.
Content, home of Xbox.
With Sony decimating the market with their own barrage of marketing.
This is how you share your games on PS4. Thanks.
Sadly, Forza Motorsport or Halo won't be able to save this even if they're absolute masterpieces. The damage has been too severe, so maybe their first-party titles could salvage some bit of consumer trust. Forza Motorsport 5 did start off well enough as we're treated by narration from Jeremy Clarkson.
Cars.
Followed up by a bizarrely mandatory Forza Vista with the McLaren P1. I'm guessing this is because a lot of people either never noticed or ignored the existence of this feature in FM4, so they're shoving it down everyone's face from the get-go. Or they're just really proud of the modeling that went into the P1. This is followed up by a quick tutorial on how to play the game. This certainly marks the beginning of Forza shoving players into a fast supercar or hypercar for their first event. While on one hand I'm somewhat fine with this, they could have made this optional because I think I say this for most of us, we're not really a stranger to racing game mechanics, and Forza Motorsport as a simcade is not exactly that complex to understand. Regardless, what comes after is our actual career start, and they're instantly gonna throw us into a championship series, with even more narration by the good old Top Gear lads.
In 2012, Mr. Toyota and Mrs. Subaru announced the arrival of their twins, GT86 and BRZ. The world rejoiced.
This will take you some time, and it will give you some considerable pleasure. You will know all these cars you may well have actually driven.
The Audi Sport Quattro, a Ford and a Toyota. Otherwise, it's all Subaru Imprezas or Mitsubishi Evos. Literally thousands of them.
As you've heard, unlike in Motorsport 4, both James May and Richard Hammond are here as well to lend their voices and automotive knowledge, making this the only title in the series with the whole gang assembled. And trust me when I say these guys are the high points of this game, because everything else in this game can be described as rough. For our first car pick, it's gonna be free within the selection of course. With 5 races to go, we start off with FM4's crowning jewel, the Bernese Alps. And this game looks really good. In some cases, this game actually looks better than the new Motorsport, which released 10 years after this game. The game also marks the first time the series entered the 16 total racers at one time. They're really pushing this idea of the Xbox One being the strongest console available at its time, and it shows. The change is followed by a new podium system. Instead of the usual first, second, or third place podiums, it is now separated into gold, silver, and bronze place on a certain placement, and the driving sure feels similar. Same goes for the assists and difficulty slider. Shouldn't be a surprise at this point. They still affect rewards as well, which brings us the return of both player and affinity levels. But this time they are shedding the shackles of tradition. No more will Forza give free cars every time the player levels up, and it's all replaced with cash. Yeah, just cash. This cash reward is even worse than what I originally thought. Unfortunately, it does not scale up with the higher levels and will always be 35k on each level. While the amount is enough to buy a low-end car, pretty much the majority of the roster can't cost anywhere beyond the 100k price range. This gets into double disappointment with the lack of excitement. To a lot of players, especially those of us who had played any previous Motorsport installment, this lacks the wow factor of seeing that brand logo followed up by the car itself. Affinity level on the other hand no longer grants discounts on car upgrades. Instead, they now provide payout bonuses if you use the brand specifically for a race. This one I have a major problem with. So in FM4, my problem was with how fast free upgrades can be earned for brands. By making Affinity Bonus be a brand exclusive payout buff, you're practically punishing players for running in more than one brand, becoming even more of a problem next to the driver level rewards, indirectly creating a massive brand loyalty problem. Honestly, FM3's Affinity Bonuses was probably the only one I'm okay with by far. Though I'm sad to say the AI seems to be a bit of a downgrade. This also seems to be the starting point of the game's notorious rubber band. You know, the one where a single opponent speeds off into the sunset alone? This was also around the time they got the destructible props made just in time for the newer Forza Horizon title. And where else can they show it off with the new Top Gear Tour of London race? Sadly, a lot of existing game modes from Motorsport 4 are no longer present in here. Fujimi Kaido is just straight up gone. Drag racing is gone. In their place are basically just regular races, autocross, and signature events. It's just a fancy name for one make race. Except you get to pick whichever car you want and the AI will follow suit. This sadly gets worse as the tracks in this game have been reduced from the previous title's 27 to only 17 tracks. Removal includes the aforementioned Fujimi Kaido, Tsukuba, and even Forza's own iconic Maple Valley. So you're gonna have to deal with a lot of repeat tracks, each cup being their own mini world tour with no freedom to pick whichever event you want. And yet again, the biggest positive is the narration by either Clarkson, Hammond, or May to introduce each cup, providing some historical value from the cars presented. Speaking of which, this game's car list has been significantly cut with a lot of the cars locked behind DLC, and their selection is quite bizarre. So with only 325 cars in total, with over 100 being DLC, you can kinda see why people see this game as an inferior follow-up to FM4. Car tuning is pretty much still the same, no complaints there. For music, well, once again we got Lance Hayes with their musical talent with similar yet different tunes from FM3 and 4. Though this time we don't really get any of the other artists who previously contributed to FM4 for the race music, Lance Hayes is going solo on this one with some pretty good tracks. A new neat but glitchy addition is the recommended cars. Every time you visit the dealership, the game will put several cars at the forefront for you to purchase based on whichever cup you can tackle. But sometimes the game likes to give you recommendations that are just out of your money range, which now that I think about it, seems intentional, because this game features a second currency. With a lot of cars being locked behind DLC, with a lot less content variety and worse event structure, this game is severely underperforming, with the only improvements being from the graphical side, which is expected coming from a new console. It is not hard to see why this game fails to impress, and as much as I'd like to experience this game's online experience, I can't. The only titles with functioning online at the time of this video are FM7 and FM8. And I don't know how to say this, but this game just feels boring. It's hard for me to describe, but the way things are presented feels mundane, despite the overly epic presentation. But who knows, maybe the next one will be better than this game. Or will it be? The 2 years have passed and another motorsports title dropped. Now I'm gonna be honest with you, this title might be the most interesting out of the newer ones, but it's not exactly good either. A lot of the changes they made for this title is the most baffling thing I've seen in the series, and some are just unfortunate. But we'll get to that part later, you'll see what I mean. Just like the previous titles, this game starts off with a tutorial stage in the brand new map Rio using the cover car, the new 4GT. Though unlike before, there's no mandatory Forza Vista showcase, so it's straight to racing. The career this time has been separated into different tiers labeled as volume, which seems to be a step in the right direction, starting off from the street cars up to the motorsports greatest. Just like last time, we don't really have a choice as the game is going to force us into a qualifying cup with 3 races using street cars. Though there is one choice given here, between the Golf, Subi, Wankel, Spoon, and the modernized Tofu machine. So pick whichever street cruiser suits you the best. followed by the assists and difficulty option, which again hasn't had much changes either. Just like how the maximum cars on track is still at 16 cars. Graphically, on the other hand, looks like there's a bit of an improvement from FM5, mainly thanks to how the reflections look on the car models. For this qualifying race, the first one is simply for getting used to the controls of the game, along with the car you just picked. The second race taking place in Yas Marina to teach players about tire management and grip, alongside this.
No! God, please, no! No!
Loot boxes. They added loot boxes into Forza Motorsport, with game-changing effects such as payout buffs and stat modifiers. I hope whoever came up with this idea is nowhere near any video game development. And if that's not enough, driver level up rewards have been changed again. So what is it this time? Wheel spins. The same wheel spins as Horizons, just with different visuals. Affinity is relegated into a bonus cash machine now. No upgrade discounts, no payout buffs for using the car manufacturer, and just cash per level up. For the third race taking place in the Road of Americas, it's all about learning to corner and overtake effectively. If the driver cars can get in front of you, that is. But remember when I told you about the volumes and how that is a step in the right direction for progression? I take everything I said back. All that effort into putting the volumes together to make this cohesive progression throughout the career immediately destroyed by a single wheel spin. Okay, progression is out the window, fellas. Progression is fucking gone instantly. Fuck the progression, we're buying a McLaren P1 now. And all this happens within the qualifying cup. 3 races is all it takes for the game's progression to crumble into dust and pieces. But I'm not gonna stop here. There's still a couple things to say, like these intro videos which look like unfinished renders. Weird artistic direction, but I guess it looks cool to some people. Then in each volume you have 3 cups with different car divisions you can choose, similar to how it was in FM5. Now this is something a lot of people rarely talk about in this game, but apparently both James May and Richard Hammond are back providing their voices in a similar manner as FM5.
Instead of relying on big V8s for performance, some manufacturers extracted as much power as possible from smaller engines.
Lightweight, pokey, skinny-tired, rear-wheel drive, and affordable. Sounds simple, doesn't it?
Speaking of which, this game has a significant improvement with the cars, well mainly in its quantity. We went from a measly 325 cars to 594, including DLCs. It's not FM4 numbers, but 200 plus cars after the devastating loss in FM5 is still an improvement. Upgrading and visual tuning are pretty much still the same though. We even got some neat concept cars here aside from the cover car. And cars aren't the only ones getting a boost in numbers because the showcase events have returned, alongside a bunch of tracks that were missing in FM5, putting us back to 28 total track count, making this 1 number higher than FM4, though it is a shame Fujimi Kaido has not made a return yet. Some of the city road tracks look gorgeous, but also weird at the same time with how empty the spectators are on the sidelines. For the music of this one, it's no longer Lance Hayes in the lead. We got Kevin Cohen and Michael Nielsen providing their musical talents for the soundtrack of FM6. Their music gives me Grid 2 and bizarrely enough NFS The Run vibes.
Congratulations, you have completed your first race.
Just like with FM5 though, I can't really experience any online events. It seems Microsoft is very adamant with silently shutting down online for both of these titles. Though I gotta say, this may sound controversial to some, I think FM6 is actually better than FM5. It's not up there yet next to the original 4 games, mind you. The doubling down on this weirdly sanitized professional look hasn't really helped them with personality, and their presentation seems to have gone downhill with a lot less effort than before. The missing content like Fujimi Kaido hasn't gotten any proper replacement either, with showcases here being mostly the ones we've seen in FM3 and 4 with less options. But still, this ain't the bottom of the barrel, even with the very shitty card pack, loot box, or gacha stuff they added with mods. So who knows, maybe FM7 isn't as bad as I originally thought it was. Another 2 years have passed and we're greeted with FM7, the first game in the series to also enter the PC market via Microsoft's own store. With Top Gear no longer in its prime, it shouldn't be surprising that neither James or Hammond are lending their voices for this game. So this game has one less crutch to rely on. But how is the actual game? Well, luckily this game's online servers are still up despite already being delisted from storefronts, so I can actually talk about that later. But this game certainly does not start as well. This was the game to fully implement Horizon's freebies from the very start. Just after my first launch, I was already given a number of cars via prizes and a bunch of credits. If FM6 destroyed any semblance of progression with its wheel spin level ups, then this game decided it would destroy it immediately from the very first game launch. And on that topic, the game starts in a similar manner to FM6, with 3 races as a qualifier or a tutorial cup. The way it's presented though is actually pretty neat. We get to sit as 3 different racers for 3 different events. Hell, they even gave us a taste of racing in trucks, and the 3rd race to showcase the game's weather system. The career of FM7 follows closely to FM6 with its volume idea, but with more mixes between regular races and unique showcases. But it also comes with issues of an already broken progression, as we can start off with a faster car than usual. Just like last time, difficulty and assist settings are available from the very start, with its options and credit bonuses. Sadly though, it follows the same issues from the previous games, where one drivatar will be blasting off into the sunset depending on the higher difficulty you choose. The number of cars on track has once again increased from 16 to 24. The higher car count in races has made the mid-pack racing a little bit interesting. With another bit of graphical improvement, they once again really push the power of the Xbox One. But regardless, this game also features one more change in the intro, and it's something to do with the starter car. Despite the game already giving a chest full of credits from the start, you can still get a free pick of one starter car, but this time you also get to pick from a selection of car divisions, greatly increasing the number of selectable starter cars from FM6. With how destroyed the progression is by rewards, it's kind of fitting the starter cars also includes classic supercars, and the return of mods, which apparently used to be in loot box style like FM6, but was removed due to the obvious disdain of gambling mechanics in the community. Remember that this game came out 1 year before the fiasco that was EA Star Wars Battlefront 2, which started a domino effect causing a lot of Western publishers and developers to completely avoid any form of loot boxes. So now mods are directly purchased via credits, with random rotations starting every 6 minutes, with some slots being filled by optional cosmetics for your driver, along with the removal of the premium currency which had been introduced since FM5. There's also some new game modes introduced, extra showcases such as the Ken Block Challenge, new mechanics coming from the collection score to replace affinity levels, a live day and night cycle during races, with another change for level ups, bringing it back to FM4 idea of player choice between straight cash, a free car, or driver customization. With the last one being pretty useless, leaving the option between credits or a free car, which you'll probably grab the free car anyways because this game has finally surpassed FM4's car count with 700 on release and currently sitting at around 834 cars. With this being the start of Toyota's bizarre absence from racing games, as this game doesn't feature any regular production cars for Toyota, despite having a couple of race spec versions, alongside several Hot Wheels cars since this game was released shortly after Forza Horizon 3, so they still got that Hot Wheels collaboration deal going. And for the tracks, Maple Valley is back with a new design, with 32 different tracks, with some new ones replacing the removed Fujimi Kaido and Top Gear track. Cave Cohen and Michael Nielsen returned for the music of Forza Motorsport 7, and the first thing I gotta say, they really expanded their options this time around. Bringing us back to early FM1 and 2 music. Less of the sanitized professional vibes of FM3 to 6. I kinda appreciate the change in tone after having to experience the last 4 motorsports. And with multiplayer still available, I can finally experience it in a motorsport game. There's actually people here. We're in Road America, where we only have right turns.
That ain't right.
God, the Beetle gave up. Oh, sorry. Oh, never mind. Beetle was saving its energy. What the fuck? Oh, sorry. Oh no. Definitely a legal overtake. Look at him go. Get fucked, scrub. A pretty clean race. Have you seen the first lap? I'm curious who's gonna fail here out of these two. There has to be a hit somewhere. There's gonna be a dive bomb, that's for sure. Of course there's gonna be a dive bomb, which clears the way for me. Perfect.
I don't think you have any idea how fast I really am.
Not second place. But hey, third place good enough. I just knew he was gonna try that. There's definitely gonna be someone sending it somewhere here. I can feel it. Knew it. Oh god, oh god. Sorry, sorry. I'll try my best for less Forza strategies, fellas. This is the Forza experience that I missed. So wonderful. I can already smell a dive bomb. Or that type of bomb. And I have to admit, I may have massive skill issues, but that was actually pretty fun. Biggest problem I had with multiplayer is the enormous lap counts in some lobbies, and some of the lobbies I'm interested in being empty. But seeing this game is delisted and people are mostly playing the new Motorsport, that's understandable. It is pretty overwhelming to get stomped by longtime players and their meta builds, though which is honestly still one of Forza's biggest problems for its multiplayer, aside from the technical problems and removal of content. And this goes for Horizon as well. Otherwise, I hate to admit it, but I kinda don't mind FM7. Out of the modern Motorsport titles, this one I enjoyed the most. Granted, it had the advantage of having a functioning online multiplayer, and it seems to be the one with the most changes after release, such as the removal of loot boxes and premium currency. But even after all that, it still feels like something is missing. Something that made the first 4 games fun to experience is still missing here. The further push for professional look still haunts this game as FM6, and made me appreciate FM1 and 2 a bit more with its more colorful UI. The further segregation of events via leagues is also a bit of a miss when arguably they already had a good idea for event access in FM3 with the calendar system and free event selection. As for the new Motorsport game, I would recommend checking reviews from other creators if you are really interested in that.